I'm going to show you something that catches a lot of firms off guard. You can run a busy, growing business. You can hit your revenue targets. You can keep your firm fully utilized and still lose a significant amount of profit without realizing it. Not because anything inside the business is broken, but because things are leaking. And a lot of firms never actually see where. If you've ever looked at utilization, project margins, or client profitability, you've already seen part of how your business makes money. The problem is those numbers sit in isolation. They don't connect in any way that shows you how profit actually flows through your business. So when margins come in lower than you expected, there's no clear line back to what's happening. And that's where the guessing starts. And when you're guessing, you're making decisions on pricing, hiring, and client relationships without knowing exactly what's driving your margin. You may get it right sometimes, but a lot of the times you don't. And that's how profit problems compound. In this video, I'm going to show you how to break that gap down so you can see exactly where your margin is leaking and what's causing it. Think about the last time you looked at your numbers and felt like the profit should have been higher than it was. You can see the revenue and you can see the costs, but there's no clear explanation as to the gap between the margin you expected and the one you got. You need a way to see exactly what's behind that gap. How much of it came from rework or work that ran over? How much of it came from pricing adjustments? How much of it came from the team that was used wrongly? When you analyze the gap between tiers, you can pinpoint exactly where the profit is leaking. And here's the part that firms tend to underestimate. The leak you're trying to find can come from several different places. And here are the most common ones. The first place where profit disappears is overwork, and you won't find that surprising. And overwork just means that you've delivered more than you were paid for. You obviously started a project with the intention of staying inside the agreed scope. Of course, we all do. But then a small request gets added here and there. Timelines will shift. Things get revisited. Individually, none of it feels like a big deal. After all, your goal is to keep the client happy. But those hours keep accumulating. That quick revision turns into 3 rounds. That small addition becomes part of the deliverable. Something that should have been signed off comes back for changes. And the team adjusts. They'll just get it done. Looking back, the project doesn't look like it changed. It just seems to have gone longer than expected. At this stage, most people think the pricing was off, but in most cases it wasn't. Either the scope expanded or the work had to be done more than once. That extra work was never recorded or billed, but your team still did it. That difference comes straight out of your margin. The second place where profit disappears is leverage. And it sounds like a technical word, but leverage loss occurs when expensive staff handles tasks that didn't need their expertise. Here's what it looks like in practice. A senior strategist rewriting copy that a junior already drafted, instead of just giving feedback. A partner sitting in a status call that didn't require their input, just to stay close to the client. A creative director making small design tweaks just because it was faster than sending it back. A senior developer fixing small bugs or issues instead of reviewing and guiding the team. As you can see, this applies to all professional services, and the decisions may make sense in the moment. And I'm guilty of it myself. Of course, because when a senior steps in, there's less back and forth. The risk of mistakes goes down, and the client gets a quicker response. So yes, in isolation, having a senior step in feels efficient. But what's really happening is you're solving a short-term problem with a higher cost resource, and that cost doesn't go away. It gets absorbed into the project. So even if the timeline does hold, even if the client is happy, that work was delivered at higher cost than it needed to be. Once again, that difference goes straight out of your margin. The third place where profit disappears is a bit less visible and a little bit more uncomfortable. We're talking about discounts. I'm not talking about formal discounts that are planned or tracked. I'm talking about the informal ones, the ones that happen in the moment. For example, when a client pushes back on an invoice and gets it adjusted slightly, or when a project runs over and writing part of it down feels easier than explaining why. Or a renewal comes in and you soften the fee or charge last year's rate to avoid any friction. Again, each one of these decisions makes sense. You're protecting the relationship after all. You're keeping things moving, and you're avoiding unnecessary tension. In isolation, none of it seems significant. But here's the problem. When those decisions aren't tracked as deliberate choices, they disappear. They don't show up in the discount. They don't show up in the cost. They just show up as a lower revenue than they should have been. Over time, those small adjustments accumulate. Not in a way that's obvious on any single project, but in a way that materially impacts your overall margin. And because it's informal, you don't see how often it's happening, which clients are driving it, so you can't manage it. You can't decide when it's worth it and when it's not. You just keep making the same adjustments without knowing what they're costing you. Over time, that changes how you price, how you negotiate, and which clients you prioritize, because you're working with numbers that are already understated. Seemingly minor choices gradually lower your profit, and you won't see it until it's too late. The fourth place where profit disappears is a bit different because it's not about how well the work was done. It's in the financials and actually has two parts. The first part is revenue. This is the work that's been done but was never fully invoiced or collected. It shows up when time isn't billed at the end of the project. Hours are quietly written off, or invoicing gets delayed and some work never makes it to an invoice at all. Again, none of it feels dramatic. Most businesses see it as a normal project cleanup. But the revenue was earned. It's just not invoiced or collected, and it never makes it into your numbers. The second part is overhead. This is where things get a bit harder to see. Most firms don't track overhead at the client level. Internal costs like management time, admin support, coordination, client service all live in the firm level, so they're not project or client level. But in reality, clients don't consume the effort evenly. Some require far more attention and internal time that never gets billed. Others run clean and require very little support. When that effort isn't tied back to the clients creating it, the difference gets absorbed into the average. As a result, clients that quietly consume more internal resources look profitable on paper, and truly efficient clients don't stand out. Most firms usually have more clients that require extra time and attention than clients that run clean. So the clients who consume more than they pay for look fine on paper, and the ones who are actually efficient don't stand out at all. And you don't adjust anything. You keep pricing the same, allocating resources in the same way, and investing in the same clients. This imbalance doesn't correct itself, it repeats and it grows. On their own, none of these four leaks feel like a major issue. In fact, they feel normal. A bit of extra work on a project, well, that's part of the job. A senior person helping to help, well, that's what they're here for, right? A small adjustment to keep the client happy, well, it's all about the clients. Sometime that never gets billed, well, we can manage that. And the truth is that a healthy business can absorb any one of those things. The problem is they don't happen in isolation. They happen on the same project. That's one project. Now multiply that across your entire client base, across an entire year. That is how a business can hit its revenue targets, keep the team busy, and still wonder, where did our profit go? Because it's not one issue, it's an accumulation of all of them. And they're all happening at the same time. So, where do you start if you want to understand where your profit is going? Take one of your recent projects. It doesn't have to be the biggest one or your worst one, just a typical project in your business. Don't worry about having perfect data. You're not trying to calculate anything yet. Just replay what happened and look at the four things. Where did the extra time show up beyond what was planned? Where did the higher cost people get involved in work that didn't require them? What got adjusted or written down at the end? And what work was done but never fully billed or collected? By answering those questions, you'll already know more than you think. And once you see those patterns in one project, you'll start recognizing them everywhere else. You don't need perfect tracking to see the pattern. You just need to look for it. And from there, you don't need to fix everything at once. Start with the one that matches what you're already seeing. If your project margins are consistently below expectations, start tracking the overwork leak. If your utilization numbers look reasonable, but your overall margins don't, look at leverage loss. If you've got clients whose profitability has quietly drifted down over time without a clear reason, focus on the overhead and revenue gap leak. Pick one and start there. And once you start looking at it this way, you'll see more than you expected. You'll also start to see how hard it is to quantify it properly. This is where most businesses get stuck. They can spot the patterns, but not how much each one is actually costing them, or where to focus first. Well, that's where we come in. We run a profit and capacity diagnostic for all professional services firms that want to fix the profit leaks in their businesses but don't know where to start. We take what you're already seeing and turn it into something specific. We'll map your actual leakage and quantify it, and we'll show you where the biggest impact is. So instead of working off assumptions, you're making decisions based on what's actually happening in your business. It all starts with a free 20-minute assessment call. And on that call, we'll look at your business. We'll talk through what you're seeing, and we'll start identifying where your margin is actually going. If you want to get clarity on this, check out the link in this video's description and save your spot, because the longer those leaks run, the more they're going to cost you.